I was standing on my own front porch, suitcase in hand, jet-lagged and confused. I'd just come back from a 6-month work assignment abroad. It wasn't easy being away from home for that long, but I was proud of what I'd accomplished. I missed my bed, my books, my quiet space. I missed the familiar smell of my living room and the sunlight that hit just right in the kitchen at 4 p.m. But something felt off. I inserted my key. It didn't turn. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe I grabbed the wrong key. But I only have one for this house. I tried again. Still nothing. That's when I rang the bell, my own bell. And to my complete disbelief, someone else opened the door. My sister. My sister! That's right, I'll be living. Dressed in pajamas. Holding a mug. Looking at me like I was the one trespassing. Hey? She said casually. Why are you in my house? I asked, blinking. She laughed. Mom and Dad didn't tell you. I moved in while you were gone. What? I stared at her, heart pounding, head spinning. Moved in? Into my house? Without asking. Turns out, while I was halfway across the world trying to build a future, my parents had made a decision for me. Let my younger sister move into my home temporarily. They figured, it's not like he's using it. But no one told me. Not a call, not a message, nothing. I wasn't just shocked, I was hurt. Because this wasn't just about a house. It was about boundaries, about respect. And right then and there, I realized I wasn't just coming home from a trip. I was coming home to a problem I never saw coming. When I finally walked through the door, it felt like I had stepped into someone else's home. The furniture was rearranged. My books? Half were missing from the shelves, replaced by makeup bags, hair tools, and stacks of fashion magazines. My record player, my prized vintage record player, was covered with a folded towel and a dying plant. My art on the walls had been taken down, replaced with cheesy motivational posters that screamed "Girl Boss" in pink cursive letters. I wasn't angry yet, not fully. I was stunned. I walked past the kitchen. Dirty dishes in the sink. My ceramic knife set, gifted by a friend, had disappeared. The living room floor was cluttered with shoes, bags, and empty delivery containers. It looked like a college dorm. This wasn't my sister's weekend visit. This was full-on occupancy. I turned to her and asked, "Where's my stuff?" "Oh," she said, casually sipping from her mug. "Some of it's in the garage. I needed closet space. Hope that's okay." Hope that's okay? That line just hit me in the gut. No, it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay that she was in my home without permission. It wasn't okay that she'd taken over my space like I was just a guest. And it definitely wasn't okay that no one had the decency to even ask me. I sat down at the edge of the couch. My couch, now covered in a pastel throw blanket, and stared at the floor. So many questions were flying through my head. Had my parents just decided this? Did they think I wouldn't care? Did she think I wouldn't come back? But most of all, I wondered, how long has she been living like this? And what else has changed? And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about losing space. It was about losing control over something that was supposed to be mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every corner of my house, the house I worked so hard to buy, felt foreign. My bed wasn't even mine anymore. New sheets, different pillows, and the smell of my sister's perfume had replaced everything familiar. I didn't want to cause a scene. Not yet. I needed answers first. So I stepped outside, sat on the cold porch with a cup of coffee I barely touched, and called my parents. My mom picked up. "Sweetheart, you're back already." Her voice was warm, almost too cheerful. I didn't even say hello. "Why is my sister living in my house?" There was a pause. One of those heavy silences that say more than words ever could. Then came the explanation. "Well, honey, your sister had a rough time after the breakup. You know how hard it was for her to find a new apartment. We thought it'd be easier if she stayed at your place while you were away." It made sense. It was just sitting empty. I could feel the heat rise in my chest. Why didn't anyone tell me? "We didn't want to bother you. You were busy with work overseas. And we didn't think you'd mind. She's your sister after all." That phrase, "she's your sister," kept echoing in my head. Yes, she's my sister. But this is my home. My space. My life. I'm not heartless. If she had asked, I might have said yes, but that's the point. No one asked. When I tried to express that, my dad joined the call and said, "Son, don't make a big deal out of this. You're overreacting." And that's when it really sank in. They didn't see it as a betrayal. While he said reacting, to them it was logical, practical, just family helping family. While he said react. But to me, gay T-sec, they didn't just loan my house. They didn't just loan my house. They made a decision about my life without me, and now expected me to just accept it with a smile. I ended the call with a quiet, "We'll talk later," and hung up. Inside, my sister was laughing at something on her phone, curled up on the couch like she owned it, and all I could do was stare at the door and wonder, do I even belong here anymore? I wish I could tell you I was calm and collected when I finally talked to my sister about everything, but I wasn't. I had spent the entire morning pacing around the house, my house, watching her walk around like she belonged here. She even had the audacity to complain that the Wi-Fi was acting up and asked me to fix it while I was around. The nerve. So finally, I just said it. "Can we talk?" She looked up from the kitchen table, where she was casually eating cereal out of my favorite bowl. "Sure, what's up?" I took a breath. "This isn't okay. You moved into my home without my permission. No one told me. You changed everything. You didn't even ask if it was all right." She blinked at me, then smirked. "Okay, first of all, chill. Mom and Dad said it was fine. And second, it's not like I trashed the place. I improved it. It looked like a man cave before. That hurt more than it should have. Mama, no time. This wasn't about aesthetics. It was about respect. You didn't improve it. You invaded it," I said more firmly this time. "This was my sanctuary. I worked my ass off to afford this place. Every corner of it was mine. And now, it's not." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. You weren't even here. What's the big deal? I'm your sister. Don't act like I'm a stranger." That line stung, because in that moment, she did feel like a stranger. Someone who didn't recognize boundaries. Who didn't see the difference between sharing and stealing. What stranger? And what hurt the most? Haman Hanju Ifi. She wasn't even sorry. What stranger? No pause to consider how I felt. Just defensiveness and entitlement wrapped up in the excuse of family. "I want you to move out," I finally said, quietly but clearly. She stared at me like I had just betrayed her. "Wow, you've really changed," she said. Maybe I had. Or maybe I was finally standing up for myself in a family that had always expected me to be the understanding one. The next morning, I woke up to a string of texts. Not from friends, not from work, but from my parents. "Mom, I can't believe you kicked your sister out. She needed help." "Dad, this is family. You don't throw blood out over a house." Mom again. "You've changed. You used to be so kind, so understanding." I just stared at my screen, hands shaking. Not from anger, but from disbelief. How did I become the villain in my own story? I stood up for myself. I asked for a basic level of respect. And somehow, that turned into me being selfish. I tried to breathe through it. I tried to remind myself that setting a boundary doesn't make me a bad son or a bad brother. It just makes me someone who's finally choosing himself. But let me tell you something. It hurts when the people who raised you don't even try to see your side. They didn't ask how I was doing, didn't ask why I was upset, didn't ask what it felt like to come home and feel like a guest in my own space. All they saw was their younger daughter in distress, and the older son, the responsible one, causing trouble by not going along with it. Later that evening, my sister stormed out with a suitcase. She didn't say a word, just glared at me like I had ruined her life, slammed the door. Gone. I sat on the couch, finally alone, but I didn't feel peace. I felt empty. I had my house back, but everything inside it now felt different, tainted, like I had to defend my right to own what I earned, and that defense cost me more than I expected. It wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about identity, trust, respect. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure where I stood in my own family. 3 days after my sister left, my parents showed up unannounced. No call, no text. Just the knock on my front door I didn't know I was dreading. When I opened it, there they were. Mom holding a casserole dish like this was some casual Sunday visit, and Dad standing behind her with his arms crossed and that familiar look of disappointment on his face. "Can we come in?" Mom asked. I stepped aside silently. She walked straight into the kitchen, her kitchen, apparently, put the dish down like she owned the space, and turned to face me. "We need to talk," Dad said, already irritated. I braced myself. Mom started. "What you did to your sister was cruel. She was hurting. She needed somewhere safe." I kept my voice calm. "And I needed my home back. My space. My life," Dad chimed in. "You're being selfish. You were overseas for months. The house was just sitting here. And she's your family." There it was again. Family. The magic word that was supposed to erase every wrong, dismiss every boundary. "She didn't ask," I said. "None of you did. You made decisions for me without me. That's not family. That's control." Mom scoffed. "We didn't think we needed to ask. You've always been the reliable one, the responsible one. We thought you'd understand." And suddenly, it hit me. They didn't see me as a person with needs or feelings. They saw me as a resource, a dependable tool, the fixer, the fallback plan. I wasn't their son. I was the solution to their problems. My voice cracked. "Do you even realize how that feels? To come home and feel like a stranger in the one place you should feel safe?" They were quiet for a second. Then Dad said the quiet part out loud. "You've always been the strong one. We didn't think this would bother you." That was the moment something inside me broke. Being the strong one doesn't mean I'm made of stone. It doesn't mean I don't hurt. It doesn't mean I don't deserve respect. I looked at them and said, "Maybe that's the problem. You think because I don't complain, I'm okay with everything." They didn't respond, just stood there, uncomfortable, like they'd never seen me speak like this before. And in that silence, I realized, maybe it's time they did. After my parents left that day, the silence in the house felt deafening. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring into nothing. My chest felt tight, not from anger anymore, but from years of carrying a weight I never realized was too heavy. Being the strong one in a family sounds noble, doesn't it? It sounds like you're dependable, capable, unshakable. But let me tell you what it actually feels like. It feels like your emotions don't matter as much, like your pain is less urgent, like your needs are optional, because there's always someone else who needs more. Growing up, my sister always had the spotlight, not because she asked for it, sometimes because she demanded it, but often just because my parents gave it to her. When she got in trouble at school, I was the one who stayed home to help with dinner. When she crashed her car, I lent her mine. No one asked if I needed it for work. And when I wanted to move abroad for a job opportunity, my mom cried. Not because she'd miss me, but because she didn't know how my sister would cope without me nearby. I didn't say anything then. I never did. Because I thought that's what being the good son meant. Swallow your feelings. Smile. Support. Sacrifice. But what I've come to learn painfully is that being the strong one doesn't mean being invisible. You can hold a family together for years, but the moment you say enough, they look at you like you're the one tearing it apart. That's what hurts the most. Not the intrusion, not the disrespect, but the realization that maybe they never really saw me at all. Only what I could do for them. So I started asking myself hard questions. What do I want? What do I need? And am I allowed to say no even if it disappoints them? For the first time in years, I gave myself permission to feel angry, to feel hurt, to feel betrayed, because that's what this was, a betrayal. Not just of space or privacy, but of the belief that I mattered equally. And I knew one thing clearly now. Something had to change. A week passed. No calls. No texts. Just silence. And for once, I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't check in. I didn't apologize for setting boundaries. I didn't fold under the guilt that had haunted me all my life. Instead, I started reclaiming what was mine. I changed the locks on my house, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Because the truth is, I didn't feel safe anymore. Not from strangers, but from the people I trusted the most. I went through each room and slowly reorganized everything my sister had moved, shifted, or claimed. It was painful, like undoing someone else's life while trying to find pieces of my own. But it also felt healing. With every drawer I emptied, every shelf I reassembled, I felt something inside me realign. I was taking back more than a house. I was taking back my identity. And then I did something I'd never done before. I booked a therapy session. For years I thought therapy was for people who were falling apart. But what I learned is that therapy is for people who are finally ready to stop pretending they're fine. In that first session, I cried harder than I ever had. Because for the first time in my life, someone asked, "What do you need?" And actually listened. That simple question hit harder than anything my parents had said. And it made me realize I couldn't go back. I couldn't keep playing the role of the strong, silent son who sacrificed everything for people who didn't ask how he was holding up. So I made a decision. No more unspoken expectations. If my family wanted to be in my life, they would have to respect me. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. I drafted a message to my parents and sister. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't emotional. Just honest. I wrote, "I love you, but I need space right now. Not just physical space, but emotional space. Until we can have a conversation where I feel heard and respected, I'm going to take some distance. Please don't come to the house. I'll reach out when I'm ready." I stared at that message for a long time. And then I hit send. I didn't know how they'd respond. Maybe they'd be furious. Maybe they'd stay silent. But for once, their reaction wasn't my responsibility. I had finally done something for myself, and no one else. After I sent the message to my family, I waited. A day passed. Then another. Nothing. No calls. No replies. Not even the usual guilt-tripping texts. Just silence. At first, it stung more than I expected. You'd think drawing a boundary would feel empowering right away, like standing tall in your truth. But the truth, it felt lonely. It felt cold. It felt like I had ripped the rug out from under a version of myself that had been holding this family together for decades. There were moments I questioned everything. Did I overreact? Was I being too harsh? Was I punishing them? Or protecting myself? But every time I walked through my house, now fully mine again, I breathed a little easier. I started noticing things. Small details I hadn't allowed myself to enjoy before. Sunlight through the windows in the early morning, the quiet comfort of a book and coffee in the evening, the joy of coming home to a space that reflected me, not what others had forced upon me. Therapy helped. A lot. My therapist told me something I'll never forget. Boundaries don't break relationships. They reveal the ones that were built on conditions. That line haunted me in the best way. Because deep down, I knew it was true. If my family truly loved me, not just needed me, they would come back. Not with demands, not with manipulation, but with understanding. They hadn't, at least not yet. And while that still ached like an old wound flaring up in bad weather, I had started to accept something I never gave myself permission to believe before. It's okay to choose yourself, even if it disappoints others. Even if it costs you relationships. Even if it leaves you with nothing but your own reflection in the quiet. Because for the first time, I wasn't living for their approval. I wasn't the strong one for them anymore. I was becoming strong for me, and that was freedom. I didn't know what would come next. Would they reach out? Would things ever be the same? But maybe the goal was never to go back. Maybe the goal was to finally move forward on my terms. It's been a few months now. My family still hasn't reached out. No apologies, no explanations, just silence. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I used to think closure came from conversations, from that final moment where everything is said, where people cry and hug and promise to do better. But that's not always real life. Sometimes, closure is what you give yourself when the people you love refuse to meet you halfway. And that's what I did. I stopped waiting for the text that never came. I stopped refreshing my inbox, hoping for an apology that, deep down, I knew they didn't think I deserved. Instead, I invested in myself for the first time in a long time. I renovated the spare bedroom, turned it into a studio for my photography, a passion I had shelved for more practical things. I made new friends, people who saw me for who I am, not who I was always expected to be. I traveled, alone, and I found joy in solitude. Not loneliness. Solitude. The kind that nourishes. The kind where you finally hear your own voice after years of tuning it out. And you know what I realized? I never left my family. I simply left the version of myself they expected me to be. The version who always said yes. The version who never complained. The version who believed that love meant silence and service. That person's gone. In his place is someone who understands that love without respect isn't love at all. And if my family ever wants to rebuild, I'm open. But it'll be on new terms. On truth, mutual care, and boundaries that are honored, not negotiated. Until then, I've made peace with what I lost. Because in that loss, I gained everything I needed. My voice, my space, my freedom, and the quiet certainty that I am enough. Even without their approval. That's the story. I didn't choose to become the black sheep. I chose to stop being the sacrificial lamb.